All right, so we're back, and today we are going to learn a little bit more with some off-body hooping tricks. So I trust that you've been practicing hand hooping, your 2-beat weave, waist hooping, all of that good stuff, chest hooping, knee hooping, right? So don't forget about those tutorials just because you're moving forward. You want to keep practicing those, smoothing them out, and really feeling grounded in your hooping journey, okay? So today we are learning how to do a behind the back pass. So remember how I said with hand hooping, whether you're using a larger hoop or a smaller hoop, I will recommend at some point getting a smaller hoop if you can, just because it will make a lot of these more advanced tricks a lot easier to actually do. Some of them will be a little hard or impossible to do with a bigger hoop. So if you haven't already invested in a smaller hoop, please just go online and get one. I make them as well, but you can find any hooping manufacturer out there that makes a awesome polypro or HDPE hoop. If you have a heavier hoop, it's nice to have different sizes. So if you are confused about what kind of size to get for an off-body hoop, you obviously don't need it to be as big, right? It doesn't have to come up to the belly button. So a good rule of thumb that I have is letting the hoop be right at the pelvis line. So right at the hip crease, right where the hip meets the thigh, that's kind of where you want to have the hoop be. Now it can be smaller than this, but this is about as big as you'd want it. You don't really want it bigger than this. And that's different for every body type, right? So I don't want to say that you need this size in inches, right? Because that's not going to be necessarily the right size hoop for you. It's more or less where it's positioned on the body. So if the hoop is resting on the ground, if it comes to right at the top of the thigh, then you're kind of good to go, okay? Now, you can have it a little bit smaller. I'm just gonna have all of these so you can see all the different sizes here. So see how this one is even smaller? So this is what I predominantly use for off body. This is what I like for me. So this one on me comes to like 3/4 up the thigh. So you can measure from the ground up to these spaces, and that will tell you online what size hoop that you'll need in order to get a good off body trick hoop, okay? So I hope that helps. Now, because I really do believe that you should have a smaller hoop, I'm going to teach this tutorial with a smaller hoop. Now, if you want to try with your bigger hoop, you can, but this one is going to be really hard to do with a bigger hoop because since we're doing a behind the back toss, see how that one already touched the ground? And this is a smaller hoop. So it gets really close to the ground because we're passing it behind the back. So this one will be really difficult to do with a bigger hoop. So if you have to stop the tutorial, order a hoop, come back to it, please do, because I really do feel like to set you up for success, you're gonna want a smaller hoop at this point. You can still use your bigger hoop to move through everything that we've done thus far, or you can get the smaller hoop and then go back through all of the other tutorials and learn everything with the smaller hoop, because then you're breaking out of your comfort zone, you're learning everything again, you're learning different things that maybe you didn't notice the first round, and it never really gets old. So just saying, tip, advice, you can take it or leave it. But today, like I said, we're doing behind the back toss, so we'll start with hand hooping, all right? And then remember, we want the hoop to be on the side, like we started in 2-beat weave. So remember 2-beat weave. So now that the hoop is to the side, all we have to do is make one more little turn, so a 90-degree turn. Now the hoop is behind us, and it's going at a little bit of an angle. So you want to make sure that it's clearing your head and your bum. So you don't want it to hit yourself in the head or in the bottom. So make sure that you're not hunching forward. You want a nice posture. You want to squeeze the glutes in, hug the low ribs in, let everything be out of the way. Okay, don't lean your head back. I don't recommend that. You don't want to hit yourself in the head with the hoop. It hurts. It happens, but it hurts. So be careful. And so when you make that 90-degree turn so that the hoop is behind you, essentially all you're doing is waiting for the opening to be there for you to pass over to the other side. So you don't actually have to physically slide your hand in while the other hand is letting the hoop rotate around it. You are literally just grabbing the hoop, right? Grabbing the hoop and then transferring it over to the other hand. See that? So we'll do the opposite direction, grab the hoop, pass it over, and then let it continue to rotate. And you can rotate it in any direction that you like. So passing. So even if it doesn't look fluid at first, that's not the point. The point is to just get comfortable with passing it to the opposite hand and then continuing to rotate it in either direction. Eventually you'll be able to smooth it out and it'll look very effortless passing it. But today, all we're talking about is just getting it from hand to hand. Okay? So you can even practice hand hooping by tossing it between two hands in front and then doing your little turn and then passing it to the other side. Okay, so this could be a little bit of a combined drill, if you will. So you can combine stuff that we've already done into your practice of behind the back hooping and just walking in a circle and really feeling comfortable with the passing between the hands, whether it's forward or behind. Okay, so once again, I always say this, everything we learn on one side, we want to learn on the other. So now bring the hoop in your non-dominant hand, or maybe you realize that you don't have a dominant side anymore. Maybe you're about evened out. That's awesome. I hope that that's the case. If not, don't worry about it. Just keep practicing. So you could start with a 2-beat weave even. If you want to really add some fun into the drill, you can practice a bunch of this stuff at once. And if you don't know what to do with the opposite hand, you can just place it on the low back, get it out of the way. You know, you don't have to do anything crazy with that hand. Okay, and then work on rotating the hoop just around the top of the hand, flex the fingers. Remember how we learned in hand hooping. And then you'll turn so that the hoop is to the side of you, right? So we start in front, hoop to the side, and then hoop behind. Okay, so you see how I reverse the directions? Sometimes it's easier to do that in the beginning because it helps to give you a little bit more momentum if you can't get from here into just a full, like a full rotation like that, right? So you can grab the hoop and then switch directions, because oftentimes what happens is when you pass the hoop behind you, it's rotating in the right, like the dominant direction on that one hand. And then when you pass it, it's now rotating on a non-dominant direction. So it's the reverse direction. The hoop is going up and across the palm versus the top of the hand. So if you haven't practiced that much with the hand hooping, like I said, you want to make sure you practice this stuff, then it may be kind of hard to let the hoop naturally rotate across the top of the palm versus the top of the hand, okay? So, like I said, the remedy for that, for now anyways, I want you to keep practicing to let it go across the palm, but just for now, just to get, you know, the feel for this trick, you could pass it and then switch directions so that it's rotating the dominant direction. So forwards and over the top of the palm, right? So do you see the difference here? This is the reverse and this is the dominant, okay? So this gives you something to work on. And you know, once you learn these little pieces, you can really start to put together combos. You know, like I said before, you can start on body. Once you learn how to do your smaller hoop on body, it's awesome. You could go into lasso, right? You could bring the hoop down in front of you, hinge, come into an isolation, right? Maybe a 2-beat weave. Work on hand hooping, do your turn, and then pass to the other hand. So you have a lot of different things that you can do here with this trick. I love how they all just build upon one another, and really what you're learning is how to put together combos. You didn't even know it, but we're putting together a giant combo with all of the tutorials that we've been learning. So I'm so excited for you to be able to do that when you've mastered all of these tricks consecutively. At the very end, you should be able to put them all together or at least get close to it. All right, so I'll let you get to it. Keep practicing, try for at least 10 minutes a day. Do not forget about the other tricks. Keep practicing waist hooping, chest hooping, knee hooping, upper thigh hooping, right? You wanna practice lasso and vortex. You wanna keep practicing isolations, one-handed, two-handed, right? Hand hooping in both directions. Their two-beat weave, okay? And then the behind the back toss. All right. Well, you have a lot of work to do, and I will see you on the next lesson.